Welcome to the 103advantage.com. Thank you for clicking on this industry webcast. We appreciate the time today and hope it will be time well spent. This website and its content is designed to show everyone that IBEW Local 103 and its partners in labor, the electrical contractors, are just that, partners. Today's program will help demonstrate that point. Over the next half hour or so, we'll talk about the labor management relationship, the new contract between IBEW Local 103 and the Boston chapter of NECA, the National Electrical Contractors Association, what's happening in new work and the market share battle, and whatever else seems to come up during this conversation. Joining me today, Mike Monahan, Business Manager of IBEW Local 103, and Glenn Kingsbury, the Chapter Manager of Boston NECA. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, Dominic.
You know, it's kind of strange, anyone that knows anything about the electrical construction industry to see labor and management sitting together under one roof with, everything going okay. I mean, cooperation is part of your business. Do you agree with that, Mike?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the layperson's opinion of labor management, because they have different titles, is that we don't get along. And that may be the case for a good portion of organized labor. But specifically in the building trades, definitely Local 103 and NECA, it is truly a partnership. We're in this together, and we have a common goal, and that is to increase our market share and get the work. And so we go at it differently than maybe other labor and management arrangements in organized labor.
Glenn, you agree with those points, or anything else you'd like to add on the labor management cooperation angle?
No, Dom, I agree wholeheartedly. Obviously, the key to our success, the key for any employer, every contractor, is the workforce is the number one key to their success. And having a good quality workforce, productive, trained, safe, is the key to their success. And that's where the relationship between the IBEW and NECA and our job, Mike's job and my job, is to make sure that we do the best to provide our contractors and our workers the tools they can do to be successful in the workplace.
Now, you mentioned it a little bit in your answer, and that is training. I think the number is somewhere around $3 million annually into your training fund, your state-of-the-art facility just across the parking lot from the hall. Maybe just go ahead and talk about just the dedication to training and how important that is in both a labor management relationship, because you guys jointly fund it, and also how that makes sense in the electrical industry, putting the best labor force out on the job that you can.
Well, I think certainly the IBEW NECA joint apprenticeship training concept is one that works as a model. And union and non-union, I think the non-union has looked at our model as well and copied it a little bit. Other trades have looked at that model, but it's a great model. We fund it jointly. We have about just over a $3 million annual budget, which we fund, and no grants, no government training, no public funding. And we use that facility to train the workforce of the future, and we can change on a dime. As we see different industries change, whether it be the renewable world or product, whether it be a fiber switch from a Cat 5 to a fiber scenario, we can change. We meet monthly, and we talk curriculum. And we can change that quick, so we're ahead of the curve for the future in training and have the best trained both electrician and telecommunication technician.
Glenn, do the contractors play a role in that change and kind of talking about what the industry demands and what it needs in terms of being able to shift curricula or anything along those lines to make sure that the best trained workers get out there?
Absolutely. Our program is it's called the Joint Apprenticeship and Training Committee, and that's because it's jointly administered by both management and labor. We've got committees, we've got subcommittees, we've got special committees that work on special projects when we identify different market shares, and we will bring in experts from both the contractors and from the workforce and help develop training programs to respond, as Mike said, as quickly as possible. When we identify a need, we move as quickly as possible to address that need, to give both the contractor and the workers the skills they need to go out and capture the emerging markets.
Sure. The industry is constantly changing. What was hot today may not be in a year and a half from now. And I think if you look historically at your facility, I mean, you talked about telecommunications back in the 80s.
Sure.
Today it's electric vehicles. I mean, it just changes so fastly. So the ability to adapt and grow and on a moment's notice be able to get in there and make changes to curricula is important. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned telecommunications. I mean, Judge Green's decision on the deregulation of the utility, we virtually almost overnight had to change our model. We were not in the data business like the regulated phone companies were, so to speak. But with that decision, we had to write the curriculum. We had to get our apprenticeship program approved. I think, Glenn, we were the first
certified training program in the country. Yep.
First in the country. We had the first apprenticeship program approved both by the state and the federal government. And that was done jointly. We put our heads together. We got industry professionals. We wrote the curriculum. We had to get it approved. And we were up and running in a relatively short period of time. And we benefited greatly, both the union and the Contractors Association, because of that relationship and being able to look forward.
The electrical industry, a term that people talk about, at least within the unionized sector, is you earn while you learn. And I think it's important for that because of on-the-job training and also the schooling that you get in the classroom. But you guys recently made some changes to how you actually administer your training in terms of the hours that the students are actually in school. It used to be at night after the day was over. Maybe just talk about the changes and I guess why that was needed.
Well, we changed, like you mentioned, Dom, society changes, and the nighttime learning is, I don't think it's as productive as it used to be. With the changes in the household and the two people working in the family, the other spouses going out the door literally as one is coming through the door. So the nighttime learning isn't as productive as it once was. So we've looked at it jointly, and this is the first year we created a day school. So from here on out, the first year apprentices this year, for 26 weeks will go days. And so it's daytime learning. I think it's better learning. It's not after a long days of work, whether it's heat and cold and up early out to work. And so we think that this is the time to switch, and we did. And from here on forward, next year, the first years, and so it will be first and second, and so on and so forth, they will be going days, and we think it's better for today's environment.
That buzzword I heard Mike say a couple times in that answer, productivity, Glenn, I think from the contractor's point of view, that's very, very important. To the effect that a worker gets the job and is either well rested, ready to go. I mean, sometimes these jobs start very early in the morning, and that's not uncommon. Maybe just talk about that from the contractor's point of view, that productivity is really important to make sure that the job gets done when it says it's going to be done by.
Well, absolutely, and I think that in the move to the day school, just to elaborate a little bit on that, I mean, we have a terrific facility, and a lot of the move to day school is to utilize that school to its maximum capability.
Sure.
And the need for knowledge is constantly changing, and lifelong learning is a concept people have heard of, and it's something we really stress. So it's not just at the apprenticeship program at the starting, but journeyman training and update programs. And so those guys, they're pretty much working on the day, so that we're going to still utilize the facility for evening classes for that. But the day school, another thing too, that a big aspect there is that training is so important. We feel we can get people trained quicker, faster, so they can be more productive faster. So much as the job site demands are such that it's not like the old days of the journeyman and the apprentice that could really spend the time teaching kids how to learn the trade. It's so fast-paced today that we've got to move a lot more of that training into a classroom situation, stuff that was happening on the job. So that's another reason for why we're doing what we're doing. We hope that we're going to get a better product, better trained people, quicker trained, more productive on the job site, faster and better for the whole industry.
Mm-hmm. There's always that question or the back and forth about who's more productive in terms of which labor force, union or non-union. And on this website, there is a video which sort of recaps a study done by Independent Project Analysis where they looked at hundreds of projects apples to apples comparisons, really looking at the same job, union and non-union, and they did figure out, speaking to your point, Glenn, that unions are 17% more productive, and it's largely due to the training they receive. You want to expand on that at all, Mike, and kind of what that means in your world?
Yeah, it's no surprise to me because we, of course, we see it. And as you said, it's on this page. I think it's safe to say it's to my left, the link to my left, the productivity study that Ed Morrow's group did. It's important to point out that that truly was an independent study. That group that did that Kurt was part of it. And they are not a anti-union, they're not a pro-union, and so it truly is one of these independent studies. And we know all independent studies are not really independent. But it showed that the productivity in the organized sector was 17% more. And he also goes a step further on wages and benefits and why the unionized sector can get paid more and get better benefits is because of that productivity. So it's not all the hourly rate. Someone can make half the wage, half the benefit, but if the competition is twice as productive, then it's equal. Well,
and you get into the whole aspect of how it's built, and better training, better skills, better safety. That also comes into the equation. You're going to have a better product at the end with that in mind there.
Yeah. Well, the safety is a big piece of that, and Glenn and I, we work hard at it with in the training facility with training. And Glenn had some great stats. Glenn, you want to share those on the workman's comp changes, what they are today versus not so long ago? It was.
Yeah, when we were talking earlier about training, one of the things that we've really focused on in training in the last 20 years or so is safety training. Mm-hmm. We train every one of our people has been through OSHA 10. We teach them OSHA 30. Mm-hmm. We've just put the entire workforce through 70E, which is the NFPA standard on dealing with live circuits. So we've really focused on training very significantly. We've got confined space training, so on and so forth, and it has paid off. That really has paid off. The construction industry, the electrical industry in particular, is a much safer industry. Not saying that it's still construction. Right. It's still one of the more risky businesses to be in. As they say, we're not building gingerbread houses out there, but still, it's much safer than it was 20, 30 years ago. I was just looking at workers' comp rates. Our workers' comp rates today for electricians are about a third of what they were back in the early 1980s, and that's a testament to, how much safer. And it's not. And it's the focus on safety with the contractors. They've all got safety officers now. They really focus on it, and that's a part of one of the things that we should be proud of as an industry, that we have made our industry a lot safer because, as we say, the goal is that everyone goes home to their family at the end of the day.
And there's a hidden cost that most people don't see, that the employer has to carry for comp. So when when you lower your comp by a third, there's a real economic value there that's returned back to the employer and the customer as well.
This summer, as we turn into fall, this summer you Boston NECA and IBEW Local 103, your contract was up and you successfully renewed it. Let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit, the process, and now that it's over with, what the new contract entails.
Well, I'll start off. Negotiations and collective bargaining, really, it's what we do. Mm-hmm. For over 100 years, the IBEW has represented electrical workers, and for over 100 years, NECA has represented electrical contractors that employ IBEW electricians. So that collective bargaining process is what brings us together, and it's really the focus of what we've done. But over the last 100 years, we've grown so much from that point. The JTC is a prime example of how much we've grown from that. So now, negotiations, they're always hard work. There's nothing easy about it. There's no shortcuts. But we're really happy. We signed a 5-year agreement, which was very unique in the industry. with this uncertain economic climate. You see most of the agreements in the collective bargaining coming at 1 or 2 year agreements at the most. We bucked the trend, 5-year trend, 5-year agreement, which I think speaks volumes to our relationship in Boston, the commitment both from the union and from the contractors, the commitment to the future to say, okay, let's get this behind us and focus on the future. That, that the business development, that working on, training our people, transitioning to day school, bringing in these new concepts to, help contractors get work and employ more people. That's really what we're all about.
Well, it sounds like teamwork is a good descriptor word that you guys would like to use for that.
Yeah, partnership, teamwork, negotiations. I mean, certainly it's not something that's pleasurable to spend your whole summer in negotiations and try and iron out a contract. But this is the second consecutive 5-year contract that we've been able to ratify by both parties, and it certainly, I think, speaks to the trust and the relationship. I think why some employer associations are demanding the 1 and 2 year. I don't think anybody sees the construction industry rebounding that quick.
Right.
So I think from the employer's point of view, across this country, they feel more comfortable with a 1 or 2 year contract. But I'm ecstatic with the contract and how it worked out, and glad that we can put that aside for the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. Why we're able to negotiate decent contracts, I think, is I think it's safe to say the employers look at the union as a stable leader in the industry. Just to regress a little bit on the training, we purchased a new building right behind the training center. So that's going to be a virtual construction site where we can do more hands-on. And with that purchase, the employers saw the commitment to training. And what Glenn was speaking to, if you can make a second-year apprentice, tomorrow's second-year apprentice, where yesterday's third-year apprentice was, then there's value there. And it's not all in the hourly rate, as Ed Murrow's study says, and as we raise the bar in the apprenticeship, we expect more. Training is better, and there's value there, and that's why I think why we're able to negotiate decent contracts in Boston.
Your commitment, the team's commitment, your partnership to the industry over the last 10 or 11 years in terms of market share has really blossomed, and I don't think it's any accident. You guys are very in tune with that and aggressive on that front. During the negotiations, I don't think it's anything unfair to say that there was uncertainty there, and it showed in the numbers. But then once the 5-year contract was ratified again, those numbers were even better than they were prior. I mean, that relationship and that people need to know what's going on and have a certain amount of certainty that it's going to be okay.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you brought up that point, and as Glenn represents the employers, and on my end representing the membership, we were certainly distracted during the summer, and why I'm glad it's 5 years. So Glenn was focused in other areas. I was focused in other areas. We weren't discussing as much as we do, targeting certain jobs and how we're going to win them. And we had the worst numbers this summer during negotiations than we've had, I think, in 5 years. And I don't think it was by accident. The employers, not knowing what was going to be negotiated, what was going to be ratified, they were a little reserved. On the union end, we were distracted and not chasing the work like we normally do. I mean, we really focus in, we identify our targets, our jobs, and what do we have to do to win them. And we jointly team up and go at this really jointly and how we're going to win the job. So we were distracted, and I think the numbers speak to how those distractions can really affect your market share. And we don't have that problem for another 5 years, and I'm glad we don't have them on a daily basis where the labor and management are not on the same page. So agreement got ratified the last day in August, and September's numbers, the market share in September was in the 90 percentile. When we could put the contract behind us, focus in on what we normally do, and we went from the worst to the best month in a matter of two months.
So it seems like that the contract or the certainty, the renewed partnership, it's I mean, it's a tool for market share, if nothing else. You agree with that?
Well, yeah, risk is the most difficult thing for a contractor to deal with, and labor being the most important part of the biggest part of their bid, their prices. That's the thing that they've got to worry about the most. So the contract provides a lot of stability there, and I think Mike was right that, I mean, particularly in that July-August range, they didn't know what was going to happen on September 1st. So now that they've got, 5-year commitment there, they know from that perspective. But in addition, I mean, some of the other significant things that we did in the settlement was we focused a tremendous amount on the apprenticeship. We made a lot of changes there, a lot more focus on. We talked about the day school. We're increasing dramatically the amount of training we're giving on our teledata branch. We're moving to a 5-year program in telecommunications. So there's a lot of focus on the training. We're going to commit a lot more money to it. We're going to, we talked about the $3 million. We're going to increase that by about 50% over the next couple of years. So that shows a commitment from the union and the contractors to that focus. And we added, some flexibility on the workforce area as well. This is another key thing for employers. So we made some adjustments in the way the union runs the referral hall, so it adds some more flexibility there and provides some certainty there, so employers can, here again, eliminate some risk and hopefully, focus on gaining market share, business development, going after new markets.
Anything to add, Mike?
Yeah, no, just really, Glenn said it all. I mean, it's a win-win. Glad it's behind us. Now we can focus in on increasing our market share, which we've continued to do for the last, I think, 12 years. We've continued year after year. We've increased our market share, which is not the case in many industries, especially in construction, especially in the organized sector of the construction industry. We have, year after year, increased our market share, both in the public and private. And once again, it's not by accident. And we've done that at a time where we've increased our pay and increased our benefits. And how we do that is by working together, increasing productivity, marketing, and a true Local 103 NECA partnership.
Being that it kind of sounds like there's a new day, in the construction industry, the electrical construction industry in Boston, and hopefully the economy will rebound and will follow suit. I mean, you guys seem like you're very primed to go after that. On the jobs front, any good news coming out of Boston to get some of the members back to work and contractors back bidding jobs?
Well, we're fortunate, it depends what economy you're in, but we're fortunate in Boston to have a couple of economic engines, 3 or 4 economic engines. Of course, the higher education engine is great. Came to a screeching halt in 08 with the meltdown of the financial industries and their endowments taking a hit, like everybody did. So construction more or less came to a halt in the higher ed. The biopharmaceutical industry, we're lucky to have it. It's been slow but starting to grow again, so we're fortunate there. The transit area, the infrastructure in our subway system and our transit system with budget cuts has been neglected, but out of necessity now, we are starting to see some more work there. In tourism, residential, those are also engines that we have, not in the single-family home market, that still has its issues nationwide, but in the high-rise rental apartment, which was a switch from the condos, is really taking off. So the universities, Harvard University just announced last week that they are now going to move forward with their billion-dollar life science facility that was more or less capped off in 08. And other universities from Boston College, Boston University, MIT, Harvard, Wentworth, Northeastern, Emerson, Suffolk. We're fortunate to have all those engines. They all have aggressive building plans now that they've recovered from '08, and looking forward to that work, of course.
And UMass Boston being one of them.
UMass Boston, great PLA there, close to $1 billion worth of work at UMass Boston, and that has broken ground. And the Kennedy Center next door for Ted Kennedy, that is moving forward, both under a project labor agreement, and both have broken ground.
In PLA news or union construction news, casinos, where do they stand?
Well, last week, the Senate 24-14, affirmative vote 4. So House and Senate both voted in favor. Then now it will get reconciled in conference committee, and they will put together a final bill for the governor to sign, which we have every reason to believe he's going to sign. He's indicated he's in favor of it. And once his signature is there, the next portion of that will come. The committee will be developed on the selection of the applications for a casino. That's 3 casinos in the state, defined by regions in 1 slot facility, just slots.
Tons of job creation there, Glenn. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it.
Okay. 8,000 jobs at peak construction. I mean, that's an estimate, but that's certainly a good sign.
Yeah, with all 3 casinos, full-fledged casinos in the slots, they're estimating about 8,000 construction jobs, 2 per facility. And we're biased, of course. We've been promoting Suffolk Downs, which is in the city of Boston, and we feel that they certainly have a better than 50% chance of getting one of those applications, and they're going to be ready to go. Another piece to that is we actually, through the relationship that we have with the ownership, Local 103, through a merger of Local 123, another IBEW local, we will be representing a large portion of the full-time workforce there. Those are the in-house slot people and mutual clerks and waiters and waitresses and so on and so forth, as well as the area trades maintenance crew. We will have a full-time workforce in there as well, maintaining the whole facility. And that's all been agreed to, and it's just a matter of building it and moving forward with it.
And moving on, from that to more of the public image standpoint, more of the advertising standpoint, the television, radio campaigns that your team, IBEW NECA team, is currently involved in. All of that is absolutely necessary in your point of view. But maybe just talk about everything that people don't see in terms of business development work, setting meetings and developing relationships with developers. I mean, how contractors and also IBEW folks, expand their own businesses by being a part of your organization.
Yeah. We've jointly identified that we can no longer react and wait for the phone to ring. So we identify projects early on. We get involved in the permitting process. There's 2 Walmarts that we will be building because we got in early enough and partnered with them as well and said, listen, we can help you through the permitting process. For that, we've got an agreement to do those 2 Walmarts and a Lowe's as part of that. But we get in early and team with the developer and show that we're not the bad guy. Yeah. We're the good guy. We're going to help you through this process, and our members that live in these cities and towns can support smart growth and development. And it's been a good thing on changing our image with them. Not once they get their permits, then we're knocking on the door. We get in early and show them that we can work together on this.
Anything to add, Glenn?
Yeah, and from the contractor's perspective, much more of the industry is moving to a design-build type of a model these days. So our contractors have that capability to help those developers, to help design, to kind of formalize what their project should be, kind of help build with budgets and so on and so forth. So our contractors are very much involved with that and helping move that process along from the very earliest part of the project.
From the building trades point of view, being IBEW one of the building trades and National Electrical Contractors Association being their contractors, there's a new saying that they're pushing from coast to coast, and that's value on display every day. It seems like everything that we talked about here over the last 15, 20, 25 minutes really speaks to that point. And it seems to me, just with the last couple minutes about business development and the other avenues, setting meetings, getting involved with the bidding process and the permitting process, that it seems like it's easy to do business with IBEW Local 103 and Boston NECA. Would you agree with that?
That's always been, I think, the case, Don, but it was a story that was never told. So certainly, jointly, we've tried to rebrand ourselves. Not that a lot has changed, we just needed to tell our story. So we jointly do radio, we jointly do TV, we do print, not as much print as we used to do, but we are constantly now telling our story. It's not the public's job to learn about us. It's our job to tell them about us. So we jointly rebranded ourselves, and we get developers and users. Once the project's done, we ask them if they'd be willing to just talk a little bit about the job and the quality and the craftsmanship. And it's nice when a project is done. It's not a quid pro quo. When it's done, you get developers who are willingly interested to tell the story. So we do that a lot.
Easy to do business with Boston NECA?
Absolutely. We're open for business.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today. We certainly do appreciate it. Good back and forth discussion, and obviously cooperation and teamwork is definitely evident, so thank you for your time.
Terrific.
Okay, and
Thanks,
thank you to
Tom.
you out there. Tell a friend or 20 about this program. There's always something new on the 103advantage.com. In fact, this site is going to be redesigned to meet the market and always stay ahead of the curve, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Until next time, I'm Dominic Geritano.